Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and the Steam Summer Sale is upon us, and there's a bunch of great RPGs on sale right now. So we're gonna break it down. So let's get right on into it, shall we? I am a massive fan of Baldur's Gate 3, however, Larian Studios, the developers behind Baldur's Gate 3, has another franchise that deserves a lot of love and respect and has gotten it over the years, and that is Divinity Original Sin. It's a D&D style isometric adventure just like Baldur's Gate 3. These games came out before Baldur's Gate 3, however, and they have a massive fan base. I've played a bit of Divinity Original Sin 1, and it's extremely similar in overall mechanical design to Baldur's Gate. And it has this interesting initial premise where you create your two primary protagonists. And even within the first initial town you go to, there's so many different branching choices and paths and quests that you can go down and explore. So if you've been playing a bunch of Baldur's Gate 3 and you want more of a similar experience, maybe give your hand over to Divinity Original Sin. The enhanced edition of 1 is 80% off for $7.99, whereas the sequel, Divinity Original Sin 2, which is even more known about than Divinity Original Sin 1, is 70% off for $13.49. These are massive RPGs you can really sink your teeth into. I recommend checking them out. A lot of us know and love South Park from the TV show. However, I think some of the best content South Park has ever put out is found in its video game adaptations, namely The Stick of Truth and its sequel, The Fractured Butthole. It's riddled with that iconic South Park humor, and, funnily enough, they're really competent RPGs, like by themselves, especially Stick of Truth, which elects to go for a more traditional, turn-based JRPG style with various classes, party dynamics, and a story that is surprisingly competent. Whether you're fighting in an abortion clinic or, I'm not joking, spelunking through somebody's anal cavity, or the biggest fear of them all, going to Canada, South Park Stick of Truth is imaginative and it's a ton of fun. Honestly, I do think it is one of the best RPGs of the last decade. And while I prefer Stick of Truth to its sequel Fractured Butthole, they're both still really good. Fractured Butthole taking on more of the guise of a grid-based strategic turn-based game. But if you love South Park and you love RPGs, I full-heartedly recommend Stick of Truth and Fractured Butthole. Stick of Truth is 80% off for $5.99, or you can get the Stick of Truth and Fractured Butthole bundle, which is 82% off for $10.78. I love Persona. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite franchises in all of gaming. And over the last few years, it's made its way to PC and is now seeing steep discounts on Steam. You have Persona 4 Golden, Persona 5 Royal, and Persona 3 Reload that released in that order. I know it doesn't make sense if you're not initiated. These are turn-based JRPGs that have a blend between social simulator aspects alongside dungeon crawling RPG experiences. The turn-based combat is some of the best out there that utilizes a elemental strength and weakness based system. The characters are all really enjoyable, they synergize well with one another both gameplay and story wise, and the narratives that are spun here are truly memorable and just great to experience. These are massive games though. Massive. Like, each of these games can easily run you 100 hours depending upon how slow you take the side content. There's a lot to unpack in all of these games, and in my opinion, they all have great replay value and are just really memorable. Persona 4 Golden is a bit of a more light-hearted version of Persona, but still gets really dark at moments. And in my opinion, has the best cast of characters and is also the funniest game. Persona 5 Royal, in my opinion, has the most competent narrative and is also arguably the most known Persona game, whereas Persona 3 Reload is a remake of Persona 3, more in the style of Persona 5 Royal, with a darker tone and atmosphere and a storyline that is darker, so some people may enjoy that more. It's really memorable. However, I'm not the biggest fan of its dungeon Tartarus. I find it to be a bit too repetitive and one-dimensional. Persona 5 Strikers is a sequel to Persona 5, but funnily enough, takes a massive detour in the gameplay department and is more along the lines of a Dynasty Warriors style game, but still blends traditional Persona elements elements and aesthetics to make it feel like Persona, and is, in my opinion, an amazing sequel to P5. Persona 5 Strikers is at a 70% discount for $17.99. Persona 4 Golden is at a 40% discount for $11.99. Persona 5 Royal is at a 50% discount for $29.99. And Persona 3 Reload is at a 30% discount for $48.99. If you're more on a budget, I would recommend P4 Golden the most, because it's the cheaper version, and I think it's just as good as Royal and Reload. But hey, you cannot go wrong here if you love turn-based RPGs. Speaking of turn-based RPGs, yeah, Square Enix still makes those. Back in 2019, they made a new series called Octopath Traveler. It's an absolutely gorgeous pixelated art style game that has a unique storytelling idea. You see, there's 8 main characters, each go on their own separate journeys, and you can gather them up in whatever order you want. It's a gorgeous game with amazing visuals, bolstered by its beautiful lighting. But what makes it unique can also make it polarizing. There's some scenes where the characters interact with each other in Octopath Traveler 1, not too many, and going through basically 8 origin stories back to back to back to back to back to back to back, etc. at the start can be kind of off-putting depending upon how you receive them. I've played a decent chunk of Octopath Traveler 1, I hear 2 improves on this element a lot, but if you've been really hungering for a more traditional JRPG that's turn-based, it's hard to go wrong when it comes to Octopath Traveler. Octopath Traveler 1 is 50% off for $29.99, but there's a bundle for Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 that's 48% off for $62.68. Or you can just get Octopath Traveler 2 by itself. I don't think these games are connected, but don't quote me on that, which is 40% off for $35.99, and bear in mind there's a demo for Octopath Traveler 2. So if you want to give it a try before you make a purchase, there you go. Nier Automata is my favorite video game of all time. It's my number 1. Never before or since has a game so perfectly utilized the intrinsic storytelling methods available to it by being a video game to the heights and the degree that Nier Automata has. It blends its story with the gameplay in beautiful and unpredictable ways, all while having a really strong cast of characters, but an amazing narrative. People always call Nier a depressing game, but in my opinion, it's also one of the most optimistic takes on humanity. It just makes you earn that optimism. It's beautiful, gorgeous, and in my opinion, the best video game ever made. Not without its weaknesses though. Some of the side quests can be a bit monotonous. However, there's quite a few of them that blow my mind. It's a beautifully desolate world that is neither too big nor too small. And what some people may call weaknesses, I call strengths. Even if the game asks you to replay a certain section, it'll give it a nice twist that recontextualizes what you're doing or who you're fighting, all the while having really fun Platinum Games combat. It's fast-paced, and its build variety is nothing to scoff at. The combat is fast, but really mechanically satisfying. The music, the soundtrack of this game is one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard from a video game, and that's saying something. It's a ton of fun, filled with heart and emotion, and just, honestly, you have to experience it for yourself. It's a work of art, in the truest sense of that phrase. It's a work of art. It is 60% off for the Game of the Year edition on Steam for $15.99. I love Nier so much, we're gonna do the other one as well. Nier Replicant version, bear with me, 0.1.22474487139. Yoko Taro is a madman. Okay, but for real though, Nier Replicant is an amazing game, and also one of my favorite games ever made, with arguably my favorite cast of characters. At least top 3. Look, it gets a bit weird, a bit complicated, but that's kind of what Nier is. It's great, but I do think it's a bit more deeply flawed than Automata, but it also has its own strengths. To get all the endings, you have to play the game multiple times over, and in my opinion, there's not enough differences like in Automata that makes it as compelling as Automata, but the story on display in Replicant is amazing. The cast of characters here, some of my favorite game characters of all time come from Replicant, multiple of them. That's how strong of a cast this game has. Beautiful locations, another amazing soundtrack, really fun gameplay as well, but it is kind of riddled with that 2000s RPG filler. A lot lot of side quests that don't really do all that much, but the dynamics and the banter you get between the main party while you're doing them can often make them feel worth it because of just how well written the dialogue is in this game. If you play Nier Automata and you love that game and you just want to give it a try because you want more Nier, I completely understand, and Replicant will give you an amazing experience. There's plenty of people that prefer Replicant over Automata, and I can understand why. I just think Automata is more polished and tries to do what Replicant did, but better. But Replicant is also amazing by itself, and I treasure both of these games. It is 60% off for $23.99. Become his gods and play some Nier. Okay, we're gonna do a quick little mini arc because some of these games I'm about to mention, I mentioned in my other Steam sale video, but I either want to go into more depth here or I just want to shout them out again because they're that good. Baldur's Gate 3 being one of them. I have put in so many hours into this game and I still have not beaten it. By the time I do, it's highly likely this game will be one of my favorite games ever made. I love Baldur's Gate 3 to death. And its co-op mode, in particular, is something I want to shout out here. I know Divinity Original Sin also has co-op, at least in 2, but I've personally experienced it in Baldur's Gate 3, and it's been a ton of fun, because you're not bound to the other person you're partying with, or playing with. You can go do your own thing on the map and come together if you really want to. It allows both of you to play the way you want or together at a moment-to-moment's notice. It's great. The main party in Baldur's Gate 3 is extremely well written and amazing, and the voice acting and writing overall are highly competent, and some of the best in the industry. The game is beautiful, and the combat is Dungeons & Dragons, but it's really good and well implemented, and the various synergies you can utilize with your party members makes the game super fun, and makes you also want to just replay it to try out other synergies, or just try out other routes and various side quests. There's so many different paths you can go on, different ways to tackle problems, that it makes the way you tackle it feel unique and satisfying and just fun. I can't give Baldur's Gate 3 enough praise. 20% off for $47.99. Speaking of another game I can't yap enough about, Elden Ring. This is a game that I thought was really good when I first played it, but on my second playthrough, it's arguably one of my top 5 games of all time now. I love Elden Ring to death. And it gets this rap that it's an extremely hard game because of the conversations surrounding it by the community. However, there's so many different builds. It has one of the best power progression systems I've ever seen in a video game. If you see a boss utilizing something or has a really unique weapon or a suit of armor, chances are, when you beat them, you can then get that, and then utilize it to lay a smackdown on everything else in the world. It's so beautiful and well constructed. It's one of the most engrossing games I've ever played, paired with some of the most beautiful visuals with its strong and unique artistic style that it makes the lands between hard to leave. It's FromSoft's unique storytelling, done arguably the best in the franchise. With little dialogue and few cutscenes, the game is able to engross you in its world and let the story unravel the way that feels natural to you, and you get as much out of it as you want to put in. If you're concerned that the game may be a bit too hard for you, bear in mind, it is a punishing game, but it kind of tries to teach you to utilize its sandbox the way you want to make it as hard as you want the game to be. The challenge will remain the same, but you can augment what you can do, and you can be way stronger or weaker depending upon what you find fun and satisfying. Whether it's throwing sleeping pots at bosses to put one to sleep and fight the other one, enchanting your weapon with various spell effects, utilizing the veritable slew of incantations and sorceries or dragon magic that the game has on offer, or if you want to go for the berserk fantasy of just wielding a giant sword and going to town, or summoning various monsters and minions to your beck and call to aid you in combat. There's so much to this game. It's a brilliant, brilliant RPG. It's 30% off for $41.99. Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice won Game of the Year, and in my opinion, for good reason. It's an amazing game, a beautiful world, and it's a FromSoft game, so you know the boss fights are gonna be great. But it's also the game I'd argue is the most different that's not named Armored Core that FromSoft make, or has made. Whereas Dark Souls and Elden Ring are known for their build varieties, in Sekiro it's a bit different. There's a far more heavy emphasis on parrying. Each fight is kind of like a dance or a rhythm game in a way, as you try and master the timings and utilize the tools in your kit as the wolf to overcome these immense challenges. It is a really hard game, However, it's also more story forward and in a traditional manner than compared to games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne or Elden Ring. I think the world is fascinating, the characters are great, and the gameplay is varied and fun, and with the prosthetic arm you get a bunch of cool little doodads and tools that you can find clever uses for throughout the game. It won't be for everybody, and it is a really hard game, but I think it's really worth it as well. It's 50% off for $29.99. Mass Effect is one of the most well-known and beloved IPs in all of gaming. It's one of the series that put BioWare on the map all those years ago, and its Legendary Edition, which has graphical overhauls and a few changes here and there, it's basically a remaster, is 90% off for $5.99. It's Mass Effect. If you haven't played it yet, there's a great opportunity to play it. In my last Steam sale video, quite a few people wanted me to bring up Kingdom Come Deliverance. I know like next to nothing about this game, so I didn't, but I just wanted to shout it out here. From what I've seen, it's a medieval RPG in the first person. First person melee games can be kind of clunky to me. I'm not ordinarily that big of a fan of them, but from what I hear, the reason people love this game is for its narrative, its story, and its player choice. It's 80% off for $5.99. Do your own research. If it's a game you like, well then there you go. Trails. The number of people I've gotten over the last couple of years that have wanted me to play this series. Again, I just wanted to shout it out because quite a few members of my community absolutely love Trails. And they always tell me how much I would love it. And to be frank with you, if there's any game in this Steam sale that I would be willing to buy, because I'm not looking to buy a lot of games right now, if there's anything I'm looking to buy personally, Trails in the Sky is probably at the top of that list. There's a ton of these games, and apparently they're like all interconnected. The main selling point I've seen for Trails is the world building, and just that these games are well constructed overall. Again, I don't want these videos just to be me telling you a bunch of games that I've personally played. The main idea is to inform you of these sales for games I either have played or games I know about, so that you can then go make your own decision, that you can walk away from this video knowing that that game is on sale and you can do with that what you will. I have no experience in Trails. I can't recommend it because I know pretty much nothing other than it's turn-based, and that apparently people think I would really like this series. Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky is 50% off for $9.99, but I know quite a few of the other games in the series are also on discount right now. Look, I know I brought it up in the Steam sale video from before, but good God, the fact that The Witcher 3 is 90% off for $3.99 is insane, for that being one of the best RPGs ever made. And The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings edition being 85% off for $2.99, it's a smaller scale version of The Witcher 3, but does a lot of what The Witcher 3 did well, as well. These are some of my favorite games ever. I think Witcher 1 aged, I talk about The Witcher all the time, we don't need to dwell on it. The entire trilogy is 89% off for $7.62. I mean, for less than $8, you get some of the best games ever made. I am no longer asking, I am demanding that you play Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. That name is a mouthful, however the game is massive. It's great, it's so much fun, and is one of the best turn-based systems in any JRPG I've ever seen. Not that it does anything particularly unique or anything, it's just really well executed. The world is so fun and varied and full of life and color. The main characters are all great, the story is weirdly good, the music is at S tier. Like, it's so good. And just like overall, Dragon Quest XI is amazing. There's a demo that you can play on Steam as well if you want to check it out for yourself. It's 40% off for $23.99. Now, to wrap it up here for the day, this part of the video may just be for me. Chrono Trigger. You ask a lot of people what their favorite game of all time is, quite a few of them will say Chrono Trigger. It's one of Square Enix's most beloved RPGs they ever put out. It's a time-traveling adventure, and a game I really need to get around to actually playing because I already know I'm going to love this game because I love Square Enix RPGs. So yeah, this one's for me. It's 50% off for $7.49. I really gotta get off my butt and actually play this thing. I'm a massive fan of RPGs, and a lot of my favorite games of all time are RPGs themselves. And in this video, I just wanted to give a spotlight to some of my favorites that are on sale, some games I'm looking forward to, and some games I just heard really good things about. So yeah, if anything caught your eye, leave a comment down below, do your own research, figure out if it's a game for you, and hey, if the deal's sweet enough, go have a good time. If there's any games out of this entire Steam sale I'm likely to actually just pull the trigger and get, that would be Chrono Trigger, get the pun, and also Trails, at least one of them, like Trails in the Sky. But with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!